Welcome to the Actually You Can podcast. I'm Michelle Galoob, a performance coach passionate about supporting ambitious and high-performing women just like you who know they have untapped potential just waiting to be unleashed. If you're looking to massively up-level your performance in all areas of life, you've come to the right place. My goal on this podcast is to take you beneath the surface so you can connect with yourself on a deeper level while providing you with valuable insights and the tools necessary to navigate life's challenges and go after your goals with strength, clarity, and wisdom. If you're ready to uncover the truth which lies underneath so you can recognize your powerful feminine leadership style, pursue your goals unapologetically, and thrive in every aspect of your life, hit the follow button and get ready to explore the incredible possibilities that lie within you. Together, we'll uncover your next steps in achieving peak performance, because actually, you can.
Welcome to another episode of Actually You Can. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by Michelle Galoob, who is a globally recognized intuitive guide, coach, and teacher. With over a decade of experience, Michelle has helped countless individuals reconnect with their true selves. Once a skeptic herself, she now shares how intuition can be a practical, everyday tool for growth and decision making. Her transformative approach has empowered thousands to release anxiety, tap into their potential, and navigate life's challenges with clarity and confidence. Welcome to the show, Michelle. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. It's very cool. Thank you for having me.
And so when you hear the word intuition, I know personally I've always been challenged in describing it. So when someone goes, just trust your intuition, I go, okay, that means to me, trust my gut. And my gut doesn't know whether it's hungry, whether it's like nervous or scared or anything like that. I'd love to hear, how do you personally define intuition? And what do you think sets it apart from instinct or logical thing?
Okay, amazing question. So first of all, we all have intuition. It's a matter of how tuned in we are, okay? It's like, some of us have it really dialed down, and some of us we don't really hear everything that we could potentially hear. So how do I define it? It's an inner knowing. It's connection to our higher selves. It's connection to the universe. It's a surrender. It's letting go control. It's allowing guidance to come in so the guidance can help us navigate life. So, like practically speaking, what does that mean? It means quiet. Okay. So the way that we tap into that inner voice is by quieting the mind. It's quieting the noise around us. Because if you walk into a room and it's noisy, you can't really think straight or receive anything for that matter. And it's about quieting the noise around you so that you can be open to hearing, seeing, feeling. Intuition comes in many forms. You just mentioned gut feeling. There's some of us who feel it in our gut. When you walk into a room and something's like, not quite right, you'll feel like this icky feeling. Not all of us. Some people will get a voice telling them like, don't go in there. So there's so many ways that we receive intuition. A lot of us don't know how it is we are already receiving the guidance on a daily basis. Like a lot of us are not aware. And when you become more aware of how you receive guidance, then you won't miss cues from the universe. You won't miss those intuitive cues.
Just reflecting on that for myself personally. So I have a 5-month-old, and I'm sure you can tell from our brief conversation before is I'm pretty busy person. I like being on the go, high energy, and I'm off work at the moment. So I've had a lot of quiet time. And I noticed that things just randomly pop into my head. Like I was settling my daughter the other night, and we've been trying to settle her for a while and getting a little bit frustrated. And all of a sudden I had this thought in my mind, say, don't give up on her. It popped into my mind. And I was like, that is beautiful. Like I love that. Is that an example of an intuitive thought or a guidance because it seemed out so random. It was just like, oh, that's exactly what I need to hear. That changed everything. But yeah, I just couldn't explain where it came from, what happened. It was just a thought that came into my mind.
Yes, absolutely. So that would be intuitive guidance. It just dropped in. It's not like you
Cool.
thinking about it. It's when nothing was going on. Now, a lot of us can't tell the difference between what's intuitive guidance and our thoughts.
Mm.
And I have an easy tip to help with that. Okay, so let's say you get a download. As soon as you start to analyze it or put your logic on it, it's no longer intuition, it's your thoughts. As soon as your ego gets involved in any of the equation, this is your ego speaking to you. It's your thoughts. It's not intuition. Okay, so and intuition usually is the first thing that drops in. It is. It's not something that takes time, and we feel it in our bodies. So what I do, what I actually teach, is that if we give our egos a name, like the ugliest name on the planet, okay, when I do readings for people, I'm going to give you a personal example. Actually, I did a reading years ago. It was at the beginning of my journey, for a woman in her mid 70s. And throughout the reading, I kept seeing an image of her jumping out of an airplane. But my ego was like, do not tell her anything about that because you're going to look like a fool. So I didn't tell her a thing because I was like, oh my God, you're going to look like an idiot. Like, there's no way you should say this. And you're probably making it up. So that was my ego playing with me, telling me like not to talk about it because it was impossible, because my logic told me, my logic told me that a woman in her mid 70s is not going to go fly out of an airplane. So I don't say a thing. The session's over pretty much. And when you're receiving guidance and you don't do anything about it, they'll repeat it over and over and over. So I kept hearing a voice telling me, you have to tell her about the skydiving. And I was like, oh man. Okay, fine. So our session was over. And I said, by the way, it was just very, by the way, I said, this, I didn't want anything to do with this information. So I said, it doesn't make sense at all, but this is what I keep seeing, an image of you flying out of an airplane. She starts bawling. And she says that, in her 20s, that's what she did. Like she was a professional skydiver. I'm like, oh. And that was a big lesson for me. And that really showed me, even though I was doing this work already, my ego still got involved. And so now I name my ego, like my ego's name is Gertrude, by the way. Hope you don't know anyone. So Gertrude is the one who puts her spin on things. She makes logic out of everything. She will tell you, well, a 75-year-old woman is not jumping out of an airplane. She's putting her logical mind into the picture. Higher self Michelle receives the guidance. It's pure. It just drops in. So that's that's a great tool to help you differentiate between the two. As soon as you put logic, it's your own version of Gertrude coming into the picture.
And so for someone sitting here going, but logic's not a bad thing. Like, how would you talk to someone who it's like, this is probably my ego, my brain trying to rationalize it. But I'd say logic isn't a bad thing, right? Like it's helped us to achieve a lot of things. Like not take break, keeps us safe, right?
Right. It's not a bad thing in the right circumstance. Okay. But there is an element of letting go of control, of having to know everything. Like we don't know. We don't know. So it's an assumption. And what is an assumption is when you make an ass out of you and me, it's you. So, I assumed, I made my own assumption that this woman was not fit to fly out of an airplane. Anytime we make assumptions, it's It's never a good thing. So yes, logic when it comes to other, you know, practical things like creating a to-do list, you use your logical brain. But there is an element of needing to surrender to the universe so that you create that magic in your life and that flow. It's like an essential part um of spiritual growth, I would say. You know, I
100.
I was very logical. I was the most logical left brain person ever. Like I had my business, I always needed to know what was happening next. I I was very much attached to my to-do lists, and I was that person. Okay. I was, and I still am, I was very spiritual, but still my logic always came into the picture until I realized that I didn't have the capacity anymore to try to figure out and come up with a solution for my problems. I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't have the bandwidth. And it was the first time in my life I actually begged the universe for help and totally surrendered. I said, I give up. I was at my rock bottom and I gave up. I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't even ask anybody anymore because even their responses weren't doing it. So that's when I begged the universe for help, and I had this huge awakening. And I saw my spiritual teacher who had passed away appear in my bedroom. It was an insane experience. I almost didn't want to believe it because, you know, me, logical, like, no, I'm not. I'm not really seeing this, am I? But I was. I was doing this, you know, pulling my eyes open and looking around the room. I could see everything around me. I could see my husband sleeping next to me, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is actually happening." And I heard him talking to me, and I heard him answering every question that I had. Anything that I was stuck on, he was giving me the answers. And that was like, wow, this is magic. This is magic. So it was then that my journey kind of shifted, you know, and
I love that story.
I realized like how magical life can actually be rather than me trying to like do life on my own. There's so many of us that do life on our own, like trying to figure things out. It doesn't work. It just doesn't. It's
And
exhausting.
I completely agree. And you mentioned that you were a skeptic, and it almost was like, okay, so you need to see it to believe it. Like this was your awakening was seeing a spiritual teacher. That
Oh my
how
God.
would what was that like for you? How did you go from being that really logical person, which I know a lot of the listeners of this show are, to be able to go, hang on, I don't quite know. Like I liken it to Wi-Fi. Like I know I have a Wi-Fi internet connection. Don't know how it works. All I know is I have internet. I feel like that's how I relate to the spiritual world. Might not know exactly how it all happens, but I
Right.
don't need to know that I have guides, that I'm divinely supported, and that I have things like intuition and all that. How would you support a skeptic who's like, spirit guides, like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, first of all, it happened to me. It actually happened. I'm not BSing anybody, okay? And if it happened to me, I mean, I will give you practical advice, but if it happened to me, I know that anybody can access this because I was so closed off to it, okay? Um, but okay. Sorry, well, your question like now slipped. It went away.
Well, I think I'll change the tact of it. So why do you think people are so resistant to trusting intuition and believing that they are guided by something other than they?
Okay, so they're resistant because it's almost like there's this fear of what they don't know. So they feel that they need to have all their ducks in a row. They need to know what's next in order to feel calm and settled. Like so many of us like live life with anxiety, okay? And what is anxiety? Anxiety is when we don't trust in the universe because it's a fear of the unknown, a fear of what we don't know. But imagine living life being guided with spiritual gurus holding your hand all the way. there needs to be a level of openness, a level of like, okay, I'm down, I'm up for this. I'm up for this ride. I'm up for connecting. I'm up for um uh opening myself up to something beyond me. Now, um now if a skeptic doesn't feel like they're spirit guides, they can at least know that there's a higher version of themselves. Okay, so when we're thinking crappy thoughts about ourselves, we're vibrating at a really low level. But when we are, volunteering to feed the homeless and or doing things outside of ourselves, we're vibing at a much higher level. So just like the Wi-Fi waves that you can't see, we can't see when our frequency is at a higher level. But when it is at a higher level, that's when we have the most access to our spirit guides and our guidance, angels. And yes, I was a skeptic too. So when people would say angels, I'd be like, well, like I want to throw up. But I'm going to put it in practical terms. When we are vibing high, amazing synchronistic things happen, for example. So let's say you're in business and you're looking for an investment in your company. When you are vibing high, that investor will suddenly like call you out of nowhere. There's not much effort. Things happen seamlessly. Things happen in flow. And it happens in all areas. It's when you totally surrender and you connect to happiness, you connect to that higher part of yourself, that godly part of yourself. That's when everything starts to happen. That's when the magic literally happens.
And I'm so privileged to have two friends who are very spiritually connected, and one of them owned a gym. And I love this story that she shared with me. She was looking to sell it because of the landlord, terrible experience with the landlord, and she was ready to walk away with it. And her mentor was like, no, sell it for money. Like, you got this. Within a week, she had 2 buyers inquire about it, and her dad had passed away 10 years ago. The buyers' names were her dad's first name and his middle name, and they bought it sight unseen just to cash. There you go.
Wow.
Like 100%. You can't make that shit up, right? You go, right. I don't know how that happened, but there is something higher there. If you're vibrating, not going like, in her situation was like, I'm just not going to walk away with it. I believe I've created something of value that I'm supported to move on to my next venture. And it was her freaking dad supporting her through these people. I was like, I love that so much.
Amazing. Yeah. Listen, I have a story about my cousin who he's a lawyer and he's very left brain. However, on September 11th, when September 11th happened, it was his birthday. And he worked at the World Trade Center, and he always went to work on his birthday. It was just what he did. That year, he was like, you know what? I'm not going to. That morning, it was that morning he said, you know what? He had just gotten married, and he said, you know what? I'm not gonna work on my birthday, which was very unusual, but he got this like intuitive hit. It's incredible because that's the thing. It's like, we don't want to live life and miss those cues. We want to always be aware, I before even doing what I'm doing now, shortly after September 11th, I got on a plane. And there was this really shady looking guy, like about to get on the plane. And I was like, oh my God. And he gave me like icky feelings. So I could have gone to my logic and I could have said, well, September 11th just happened. So I'm going to pinpoint him as shady.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there was a little bit of like, well, maybe I'm just paranoid here. But I kept feeling this feeling in my gut. And I kept saying, no, this guy really is shady. So I told the flight attendant, I said, there's someone really shady about to get on this plane. Please don't let him on. Anyways, they let him on the plane. He walks onto the plane with his like hands in his jacket. Looked like there was a gun hanging out. I don't know. It was really freaky. And he was staring at me, probably because he realized I was onto him. And it turns out he was a terrorist. He was on that plane with no luggage, had a fake passport. He had bought a cash ticket, one-way ticket. And I was like, thank God I listened to myself. And this is why I'm so passionate about what I do. Because if I can do it, literally anyone can do it. Anyone can tap into that side of themselves that just knows and has the answers and is guided. Because I was guided to tell the flight attendant that day, you know, even though it was uncomfortable because I could have been wrong, but you know what I mean?
I have no words for that. That's freaking incredible, to be honest. And just mic drop, boom, done there. And so what comes to mind when you share that particular story though is, how do you tell the difference between your intuition and fear-based thinking? Like, how do you know something is an intuitive job that's just reacting at it?
Well, intuition, you're going to feel in your body. It's something you receive. You receive it in whatever way, whether it's seeing an image, hearing, just dropping into your body. Everything's in your body. You'll feel it. You may get, when you told me that story about your friend, I got goosebumps, right? So that I call them like truth bumps. Okay. So
Yeah, cool.
it's our body's way of giving us a yes or a no answer, so to speak. Okay. Everything else is fear-based. It's like, it's when you're cut off from the magic of the universe and you're like, you're not tapping in. It's very 1%. It's not 99%. It's very like, it's just here. And you'll feel it over here. It's like, it's in your head. It's in your brain. You've thought these things. And then you'll keep having thoughts about those things, which to me indicates that it's not real guidance. And so a great tip there would be, let it go. If you have a question that you want answered from the universe, like, write it down. And then write down whatever comes to you, okay? Write down and let it go and put it aside. And when you're not attached to the outcome, because any attachment, there you go, there you've just ruined anything, ruined any guidance that could possibly come in. Once you're not attached to the answers and not attached to the outcome, then look at that piece of paper that you've written everything down, and then ask your guides then, which, what is the right answer right now? What is in my highest good right now? And let it go again. And then when you are in a quiet place, when you're doing your meditation or you're taking a long shower, or you're going for a swim or a hike or a walk, or any activity that you can do that quiets the mind, that's when the answer will come in. And if it doesn't come in then, it will come in later. But when you're not attached to getting an answer, that's when you will get your answers.
I am just reflecting on that. Personally, as I mentioned, I've had quite a number of quiet moments in my life in the last 5 months.
Yeah.
And it's been really incredible, the things that have popped in those moments. And for those listening, it doesn't have to look like sitting in a deep meditation. It's literally why I'm out walking, why I'm sitting there playing with my daughter or rocking her to sleep or anything like that. It doesn't need to look a certain way. And I think that's probably where the logical mind gets in the way. It's like, to receive guidance, I need to channel, I need to get some crystals out and say a prayer or some shit or something like that. It's like, no, the shit just drops in whenever. Yeah.
So I love that you just said that, because, when I first started doing this, I felt like an imposter because I wasn't the typical intuitive. I was like, I hate meditating. I hate meditating more than anything. And I still don't really love it. So I found the things that work for me. Like, I'll sit and listen to white noise or the sound of rain, and I'm like, I feel, now I could get into the zone. And I'm a big fan of long showers. Okay, I'll take a long shower, and I get the best ideas in the shower. My most amazing downloads, like answers to things that I've asked for forever ago. It'll just come in the shower when I'm not attached. Even folding laundry, even though I hate it, but I at the same time I like it secretly. Don't tell anyone. I like it because it helps me get into a zone. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just like folding, and things come. Going for a walk, going for a hike. There are so many different ways to connect. You just have to find the thing that works for you, that resonates. Um, yeah, it's a misconception that all you have to do, like that all people do is meditate and, you know, and try to get at their answers.
Yeah, and I think it's very rare for people to to experience space and moments of quiet. I think even if I look at the example of going for a walk, people put headphones in or they're playing music, and it's like music with lyrics. It's not the white noise where you can actually tune into it. And so I think, yeah, you don't need to sit on a cushion in silence, but you do need to give yourself some sort of space from external influence.
Exactly. Exactly. And my recommendation would be to do it at the same time every day, training your body to know that that's when it's most open. So consistency, be consistent. And then your guides are going to know, okay, Miff is open between 6 and 7 a.m. while she or a long shower. You know, like this is when we can communicate with her. So once you open yourself up, then you need to know how they always talk to you. Because
Yeah, and
they do. They always talk to us as our spirit guides.
yeah, there's two things on that. I remember hearing, I think it was through some of Joe Dispenza's work, and I think this is why meditation is often recommended in the morning or just before you go to sleep, because your brain waves are vibrating at a lower frequency. I know personally for me, I think really clearly in the morning because it's like my logical brain hasn't had the opportunity to kick in yet. As the day rolls on, more shit happens, more things I'm reacting to or responding to, the more clutter is in my mind and I'm less able to receive those downloads. I normally get them in the morning or later at night. That's personally what works for me. But then you mentioned people receive messages differently. So I mentioned that I have like random thoughts drop in. I know my husband, he gets a feeling. He will go somewhere. He's like, I need to go. And I was like, oh, what's wrong? He's like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel good being here. And I've learned to go, okay, he seems feeling. Like I don't need for him to justify what he's feeling. All as I know is it feels good or it doesn't feel good. And that's his way of connecting with it.
Right. Yeah. We all receive it in different ways. I see images and I hear voices. Um, and my husband also gets the feeling in his belly. He gets like an up feeling for like something positive and a really sinking feeling for something that's not, you know, not vibing well with him.
Yeah. You help people connect with spirit guides as well. What
Yeah.
does that process actually look like?
Well, I teach. I have a workshop where I will help you um understand which way your guides speak to you. Okay, because a lot of times we're just not aware, and so many of us. So I've done this for a bunch of people, and a lot of them tell me, well, I don't they don't talk to me, or I don't know how they talk to me. They talk to you. And I'm like, no, they don't just talk to me. They talk to you too, where you're not aware. And they're like, yeah, well, I don't see images like you do. But once we do our exercises, in the class, they're like, oh yeah, I could see, I could hear, I could feel, I felt everything. So it's a matter of like, um, learning how to tune in. We're like radio station. We've got to tune into the right frequency. So once you tune in, once you know how to get to that frequency, and once you recognize how you receive your guidance, then you are ready to ask your questions. The first step that I would recommend if you want to start with no training whatsoever, connecting with your spirit guides, and this is how I started. It was my basic yes and no answers. And so what I would do, I would ask a question, but it's always about the question. I would always ask, what's in my highest good? Okay. Like this, and this. And I would close my eyes and I'd visualize a traffic light. And I would say, I would ask my guides to show me a red, like imagine a traffic light in your mind's eye. And when you close your eyes, you can see it. So I'd say, show me a red for no, and show me a green for yes. Like so simple. And that's how I would get my answers. That was the beginning. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. You know, eventually that process evolved. Now I could say, you know, guides, please show me a red stop sign for no and a green apple for yes. Like, you can ask your guides to show you anything that you want. You just have to be open to receiving that guidance.
I love how you mentioned that it's accessible to anyone. Like my journey with this so far is about a couple of months ago. I interviewed a guest on the podcast actually who was experiencing kinesiology. And so after that, I just went to learn more about muscle testing. Yeah, I'm doing this one thing is and ask myself yes or no questions and to see and I'm like, this works.
It
It's
does.
incredible that I haven't progressed it to just asking a question like that. I'm really excited to have that as a next step. But I think that's when people say they talk to psychics or channels. Now what's coming to my mind is, yes, they have a particular gift, but they're channeling information that's available to you. You just haven't tuned into the radio station that you just mentioned. Is that essentially what's the thing?
That is exactly it. We all receive it. If I think back to my childhood, not knowing that I had this gift, right? My mom, I remember, was working with some lady and she invited her over for dinner. And I think I was 8 years old. And I sat there like with my arms crossed and I was like, well, giving her these looks. And my mom's like, I don't understand. And I told her, I said, I don't like that woman. I don't trust her. I mean, I'm 8 years old. I don't trust her. I don't like her. You shouldn't work with her. And my mom's like, oh, she's such a lovely lady and da 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 da. This woman was a scam artist and tried to like swindle my mother for I don't even know how much money. It was crazy. So we have to pay attention to what we're receiving and not like poo-poo it like it's nothing. That's what we do a lot of times. We kind of ignore that voice, you know? But we're always getting guidance. We just have to be aware of it. And we have to stop second guessing ourselves because that's where we throw it all away. We just throw it all away. We're like, no, it's impossible. I'm just a regular person. I don't get intuition. Yes, you do. Like, we all do. I'm no different than you. I've been practicing longer, so yes, maybe I know how to tune in a little easier and it comes faster and I'm more aware of the intuitive language that's being spoken to me. That doesn't mean you don't have it. You absolutely do.
And I think there's probably more resistance. Like I know if I talk to any of my male friends about intuition and guidance, like feelings, like I don't have those. I think people can be quite closed off for it. This has dropped in. So just because of the nature of the show, I'm going to leave with this question. What's the deal? I see it a lot of the time on Instagram and stories, people posting what they say is like angel numbers. They go, oh, I'm seeing the ones everywhere. I'm seeing fours everywhere. Look at me guided. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, interesting you bring that up. Okay, so I was not someone who always saw numbers, and I kind of thought it was. Listen, I know that our spirit guides, a lot of time loved ones, they use numbers to get our attention. They use butterflies and birds and whatever else to get our attention, to open us up. Now, my father passed away at the end of August. His birthday was November 1st, and he had dementia right before. The one thing he would always remember when I would ask him, when's your birthday? He would say, it's 1/11, 1/11, 1/11, 1/11. He would always say it. So right after he passed, I was like, wouldn't be surprised if now I'm going to see ones and 11s and 11/11s and whatever. Every day since the beginning of this month, since January 1st, I just happen to look at my phone and it's 11/11. And then I'll look again and it's 1/11. I'll look again, it's 11/11. I'm like, and I know it's my dad. I know that this is his way of saying, hi, I'm here, and it may seem it's not a big deal. It's coincidence that I keep looking at the phone at that time, but I know it's his way of nudging me. he always talked about those numbers. So, um, yes, it's our guides, it's our loved ones just nudging us and saying, "Hello, you're not alone in this world. Come, you know, talk to us, ask for help, ask
I
us for something." So, no, I'm not really um, knowledgeable about exactly what the 1 1s mean and the 2 2s and the 3 3s. To me, it's just I know it's their way of talking to us. I don't know what each one means. I do feel like 11s, though, have something to do with healing and healing energy. So, yeah.
I love that. The fact that, I mean, you touched on the word, like, you just know, the sense of knowing. So I think that's so powerful. But I love what you've also mentioned about numbers, like being an representation of you not being alone. Like I love that. If that's the least someone takes from something, seeing, sequential numbers or the same numbers reappearing just as a reminder that you're not alone. Like, how beautiful is that?
Yeah. No, yeah. It's amazing. In fact, it brought me a lot of peace knowing that. Um, I mean, it is what I do for work. Okay. But like, even, after my dad passed away, I didn't feel like he's gone because I know we can access all of our loved ones. They're here. They're around us. So I talk to him. I talk to him all the time. And I'm like, show me the numbers. Show me a sign. Give me a sign. Talk to me. Come to my dreams. So I don't. What's interesting is when he passed away, everyone's like, "I'm so sorry for your loss," and I'm thinking it bothered me because I was like, "No, no, I didn't lose my keys. It's not like it's not a loss. It's
Yeah.
just an evolution. Um, it's a new way of communicating with him. You
Yeah.
know, uh, yes, obviously, I feel the lack of him and his presence, but I actually feel him more now than I did then because he was like trapped in his, dementia. Now I feel him. I'm like, I'm saying hi to him all the time. I'm like, "Hi, Dad," and he's here with me in Los Angeles, and it's pretty cool.
Brings such peace to me from knowing that people who are past, it's the same sort of thing, like our physical, that their meat suit, their body isn't here, but they're still around. Because I think of death in the same way. I'm like, it's still here, just in a different form. It will
Yeah,
all happen to us one day.
100%, 100%. Um,
And
yeah, and I know, like a lot of people's loved ones come as birds and butterflies, and somebody just sent me a a picture of these 2 birds. She had told me about it. She said, "These 2 birds come to my house every day, and they just sit and sing in front of my door." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, this is incredible." So, you know, just paying attention. We just gotta pay attention. That's all.
so there's no doubt that being connected to your intuition and your spirit guides has, all I can describe is your life seems like it has such magical moments in it.
Yeah,
Such words you described.
and you
What
don't
has
feel alone. You don't feel alone. Yeah. Sorry.
what no, 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 I was curious to understand what has motivated you to really lean into this work. So how did you go from being a logic skeptic to this happening to you being like, I'm going to make this my thing, like I'm going to lean into this and share it with the world?
Okay. So first of all, when it happened to me, I didn't want it because my logical brain was like, "Well, no, only weirdos do this kind of work. I'm not that." Like, I never saw myself as that, like, "Let's hold a crystal," and, I was not that person at all. I was like, "Oh my god, what are people gonna think?" So I kept pushing it away and pushing it away. And then then I met my teacher who actually taught me, this lady from Argentina who I met randomly.
But not randomly.
Randomly, randomly, like, and this is when I start to hear the voices. So I start to hear voices, then I was like, "Oh my god, something's wrong with me." Like, I can't tell anyone about this. I told one person because I was so embarrassed. I was like, "I'm a normal person. What's going on?" And so she was like, "Oh, I think your third eye is open." "What are you even talking about?" She said, "Yeah, go see this tarot card reader that I know, and she'll and let her ask her if you can see." And I'm like, "What a weird question." Like, I don't wanna ask that. So I didn't ask anything. I went there, she's pulling the cards. And then she pulls this card that's a seer card, SEER, seer. So, and she goes, do you know that you came here to channel for people? You came here to see. And I was like, what are you talking about, woman? So I said, okay, so will you teach me? Because, she said, no, I don't see. You see. I said, I don't see anything. I was like, but
Getting helping me.
yeah. And she said, if you want, we can ask your cards when you'll meet your teacher. So I'm like, okay. I mean, I was kind of taking it like a joke, this is a joke. Well, I'm pulling the cards and she says, okay, you're going to meet your teacher in 2 months from now. Now the months passed and I didn't meet anyone. And I was like, oh, this is a load of crap. And then come the end of March, which is when she said, you're going to meet your teacher in the month of March. It was the last day of March. And my husband was on the phone with this healer from Argentina because his brother is really sick and he was looking for somebody who could do remote healing. And he was on the phone with her. I get into the car. He was on speakerphone. And once I get in, I was like, oh, who are you talking to? And he was like, oh, that's healer. A healer from Argentina. I'm like, I was like, oh, wow. I put the call on mute and I said, she's going to be my teacher. And he was like, what are you talking about? I said, you're going to see, watch this space. And he was like, what are you talking about? I just knew. Anyways, take her off of speaker. The first thing she says is like, who just got in your car with big brown eyes? And I'm smiling. I'm like, yes, see? And he says, oh, it was my wife. And then she says, do you know that your third eye is totally open? And I'm like, I've kind of heard that, but I don't whatever. And she basically, she said, I'm coming to LA next week. She never told my husband that. So I'm coming to LA and I must meet you. So I go meet her for a coffee. And I told my husband, I was like, you see, I told you, this is so exciting. I go meet her for a coffee. And then she's like, I was guided to come here. My guides told me that I needed to meet this person. And I know that person is you. And I need to teach you what I know. So even with that, I still pushed it away because I was like, okay, teach me. She was like, yeah, they talk to you all the time. I said, first of all, who's they? And she said, your gut. I was like, don't say they. I don't even have, don't be weird. And she said, I said, no, they don't talk to me. She said, no, they do, the voices. And I was like, oh yeah, I do have those voices. I said, can you teach me how to turn them off? I don't want this. And she said, I'm going to teach you how to manage the voices. So even once she taught me, I still didn't want this gift. I've tried to throw it away 100 times. I was like, please just take this away from me. I don't want to be this person. And what happened is that people were just coming to me and asking me questions. And they were like, oh my God, you changed my life. And I'm like, okay, this is strange. And once I just let it go, I actually had a friend come visit me. And I said to her, I said, do you want to play some fun games with me and practice what I'm learning? And she was like, yeah. And I sat with her for hours. Both her parents had passed away. And we're just I was having so much fun because I was just practicing, didn't even know anything about anything. I didn't even realize I'm connecting to her parents, telling her things that she starts bawling. She's like, oh my God, my dad used to always say that. And I'm like, but I just thought it was just me having fun and thinking. And anyways, that session was so powerful I'm calling it a session. We were just having fun. But she went back home to New York and basically told all her friends. And that's how it happened. And her friends were calling me saying, are you the soul whisperer? And I'm like, soul? This is weird. I'm like, I guess so. And that's how it started. That is how it started. So I would do some sessions here and there, and eventually, it was all word of mouth. And then every week people were calling me, and it all started from that, just having fun while she was visiting and playing around with all this stuff that I learned. So, yeah.
I think that's what I'm learning myself as well, is when you're doing something, using air quotes here, like you're supposed to do,
Yes.
you can do whatever the fuck you want, that it is fun. I won't say it's easy, but it feels a bit effortless. Like you're being
Yeah.
pulled in this direction and you go, somehow you just end up here doing it. Like, I don't know how the fuck I got here. And you were just having fun. Similar's happened to me. I'm like, had fun. And then the opportunity appeared. I'm like, cool, it must be the opportunity for me.
Right.
And if you keep following that frequency, or, I mean, I get challenged a lot by goal setting. The start of the year, people are like, what goals do you want to set? I don't know what I want to achieve. I want to know how I feel. And as long as I continue to feel that way, I'm going to trust that whatever the fuck I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yes, exactly that. You've nailed it. Exactly. It's
Good.
all about tuning into that feeling. It's like me doing sessions feels like me going for coffee with a friend and just talking. That's what it feels like.
Yes.
It's like, it's an extension. It's really who I am. It's who I've always been. I just never really knew it. So, and I know it's my calling because it kept coming back to me, even though I like kept pushing it away. And it was only once I surrendered and I said, okay, you can use me now. It's fine. I just let it go. That's when it all started happening. I was so embarrassed about it. I didn't tell any of my friends. And they were like, Michelle, do you do readings? And I was like, oh, yeah, I do. Because I just felt like it was so not me and I judged that world before. So, and I realized I can do this work without being like what I thought everybody else did. I approach it in a very practical way, not up here and woo woo. So
Yeah. For those who are recording and aren't seeing the visuals, she's not sitting here in like flowy dresses or crystals everywhere. She looks like a perfectly normal, grounded human being.
yeah, and I make
And
fun of this too a lot.
so you're
Make fun of this world, but now I'm like, oh my god, so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, Michelle, you've inspired the fuck out of me. I know there'll be listeners who you've inspired the hell out of as well. What would you recommend is a really practical step that they can do in the next 24 to 48 hours if they're like, okay, cool, I need to plug into the intuition business, like I'm stuck in my logical mind. Let's see what my intuition's all about. How would you recommend they do that?
So I would start by doing 10 minutes of white noise. Okay, let's just call it white noise for now. You can find it on YouTube. Just type in white noise. It's so easy. White noise. 10 minutes of white noise. Get yourself into the zone. Then what I would do, I would ask a question that you already know the answer to. Okay, so like, is my name Michelle? And instead of, this is the test of the ego, because your ego obviously knows your name, right? Okay, but you're going to ask your guides to show you the traffic light. So you're going to close your eyes. You're going to visualize that traffic light that I talked to you about. And you're going to say, show me a green light if my name is whatever it is. Show me a red light if my name is Bob or whatever, and play with it there. And then you can go on to asking questions that you actually really do want guidance on. And I don't want you to overthink the answers. I want you to just go with the first thing that comes and trust it. And then after you've done the traffic light, ask your guides to show you a yes or no and see where you feel it in your body. And that's the starting point. That's where you can start practicing and letting guidance in. Because so many of us, it's funny, I use this example a lot when I'm doing sessions, but we've got to see our guides like waiters in a restaurant, okay? They're waiting on you. But a lot of us, when our guides come and say, hey, Miff, what can I get you from this restaurant? Most people with their guides say, oh, don't worry, I'm okay. I know where the steaks are. I'll just make it myself. It's fine. And that's what we do with our guide. So it's time, and our guides are waiting around, waiting for us to ask them for help. They want to help us. It's their job. That's what they want to do in the upper worlds. So let's get going. Let's start asking for help. Let's start creating circuitry. We're not alone in this world. So
all I'm thinking about is like my poor guides. They must be like, oh, for fuck's sake, Miff. Like, how many times do we have to show you this?
She's doing it again.
I love that so much. And so thank you, Michelle, for sharing all of your insights and experience over the last hour or so. I've had such a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, me too. You're welcome.
If the listeners are keen to learn more about the incredible work that you do, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is at Michelle Galoob. And I also have a website, which is michellegaloob.com. And yeah, I think those are the two places that you can really get everything that you need.
Amazing. And if you sit and do that exercise and ask, should I reach out to Michelle, and you get a green traffic light, you know what you should do.
I'm going to offer your listeners a special discount on their first time reading with me. So I'll send you the link.
Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
I'll put it in the show notes as well. But thank you so much, Michelle, for your time today. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I hope this was helpful. If you thought of someone while listening to this podcast, I would be so grateful if you could share this episode with them. While you're doing that, please also take a moment to leave a review on the podcast if you haven't yet already. It takes less than a minute and it means so much to me and helps this podcast to reach more people just like you. Thank you so much for that, and I'll see you in the next episode. In the meantime, go out and achieve every dream you have, because actually, you can.